At exactly 2 p.m., as warm afternoon sunlight streamed into the living room, Mary was preparing for her craft live stream. The 42-year-old woman arranged the materials for today's planned knitted pouch with meticulous care, her usual gentle smile gracing her face before the camera. She positioned the soft-textured yarn and gentle pastel colors with careful attention to how they would appear on screen. This time alone was her only sanctuary, the place where she could reclaim herself. The messages flowing through the chat, looking forward to today's stream, and what beautiful yarn, warmed her heart. But someone beyond the screen was beginning to notice a small discrepancy that even she herself hadn't yet recognized. And this discrepancy would transform, just hours later, into something decisive that would shake the very foundation of her life. Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in today. Mary's voice was calm with a reassuring quality that put listeners at ease. The chat began filling with warm comments, looking forward to today's stream, what lovely yarn, and thank you as always. With 8,000 followers, it wasn't a large community by any means, but to her, it was an irreplaceable sanctuary. Working as a part-time office clerk on weekday afternoons, this streaming time was entirely her own. Her husband Dexter worked busily as a middle manager in manufacturing, while her mother-in-law Constance was a respected figure in the community as a former elementary school teacher. On the surface, they appeared to be a perfectly ordinary American middle-class family with no problems whatsoever. However, about 30 minutes into the stream, Constance appeared in the background. The 69-year-old mother-in-law was dressed in her usual elegant attire, her perfectly styled white hair immaculately arranged. Her appearance, combining the dignity of her years as an educator with the gentle warmth of a grandmother, was well regarded in the neighborhood. "Oh, you were streaming," Constance said in a sweet, gentle voice. "You must be tired." However, contrary to those words, there was something cold dwelling in Constance's eyes as she gazed at her. A look that seemed to appraise, to evaluate her worth. It lasted only an instant before returning to her usual gentle expression, but the camera had captured that subtle shift. An anomaly occurred in the chat. Comments began flowing. "She seems kind of scary. Her eyes aren't smiling. What was that look about?" The viewer's sharp observation had detected a discomfort that she herself hadn't noticed. However, the streamer remained oblivious. She had believed for years that her relationship with her mother-in-law was good. She had grown too accustomed to superficial conversations, formal greetings, and above all, maintaining family appearances. Her ability to perceive genuine emotions had dulled. At 6 p.m., the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. Her husband Dexter had returned home. The 46-year-old worked as a section manager in manufacturing, but lately he was exhausted from relationship pressures with subordinates and performance stress. As he stepped into the entryway with a heavy sigh, he seemed to have lost his vitality. "Welcome home, Dexter," she interrupted her stream equipment cleanup to greet her husband with a bright voice. However, Dexter barely looked at his wife's face, giving only a brief nod. Then, as if drawn by a magnet, he headed toward his mother Constance, who was reading the newspaper in the living room. "You must be tired, Dexter." Constance's voice toward her son was clearly different from the one she'd used with her daughter-in-law earlier. It was filled with genuine affection and warmth. "I'm home, Mom. I'm exhausted today." Dexter's expression softened like a different person in front of his mother. There was no "I'm home" for his wife. As if she were invisible. This scene wasn't unusual. Rather, it was routine. But today, somehow, that difference felt more pronounced. While preparing dinner, she recalled the comments from today's stream. The discomfort the viewers had sensed. Something she hadn't noticed herself. What could it have been? 3 place settings on the dinner table. But even there, subtle differences existed. Dexter and Constance's plates were carefully arranged with elaborate dishes, while her own plate was slightly smaller with simpler sides. She had unconsciously developed the habit of putting herself last. "How was today's stream?" Dexter asked with apparent disinterest. "It went well. The viewers seemed to enjoy it." That was all. In contrast, when the conversation turned to Constance's community activities, Dexter's eyes lit up. He spoke proudly of his mother's achievements and listened happily to the praise from neighbors. That night, before getting into bed, she stared intently at her face in the bathroom mirror. Her 42-year-old face showed fatigue, but more than that, there was a shadow of something like resignation. When had this expression begun? From the next room, she could hear conversation between Dexter and Constance. A warm moment between mother and son. There was no place for her there. The chat comments flashed through her mind again. Something feels off. The viewers had perceived something she herself couldn't recognize. Perhaps it was the beginning of subtle cracks in family relationships. In the quiet night, she let out a small sigh. Tomorrow, the same routine would begin again. However, she didn't yet know that something she could no longer overlook was lurking within that routine. The next morning, she woke at 7 a.m. to her alarm clock as usual. While preparing breakfast, she tried to shake off the previous night's unease. But as she cooked in the kitchen, she noticed another small discrepancy. She was preparing breakfast for 3 as always, but Constance had put away her coffee cup. "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished with it," her mother-in-law said apologetically, but her eyes showed no genuine remorse. "It's fine," she smiled in response, but a small question arose in her heart. Constance should know that she used the same cup at the same time every morning. At 8:30 a.m., she headed to her part-time job at a small accounting firm. The workplace was about a 15-minute drive from home, a family-run office with about 8 employees. Since starting work there 2 years ago, her relationships with colleagues had been good. At least, that's what she had thought until yesterday. However, the moment she stepped into the office, something was different. Jennifer at reception, who usually greeted her brightly, was avoiding eye contact. Robert, who sat at the next desk and normally made small talk, kept his eyes down on his papers today. "Good morning," she greeted with her usual brightness. "Oh, morning," Jennifer's response was clearly awkward. Something was wrong. As she sat at her desk, she tried to read the atmosphere around her. A subtle tension hung among her colleagues. It was an atmosphere as if someone had been talking about her. Around 10 a.m., while she was working at the copy machine, she overheard Jennifer and Robert speaking in low voices at the coffee corner. "I wonder if she's really okay," Jennifer's worried voice. "But it's not normal for her husband to call directly like that," Robert replied. Her hand stopped. Her husband called? Dexter called the workplace? You might have overheard something. I wonder if she has problems at home. Shh. You're being too loud. The two noticed her and hurriedly stopped talking. However, those fragments of conversation planted deep anxiety in her chest. During lunch break, she bought a sandwich from a nearby cafe and returned. Michael, the office manager, was waiting for her with a troubled expression. He's a gentle man in his late 50s who always treated his employees like family. I'd like to have a word with you. Michael guided her to the conference room. Is there a problem? She asked, hiding her anxiety. Well, it's not exactly a problem, but... Michael began speaking as if choosing his words carefully. Yesterday, I received a call from your husband. From Dexter? Yes. He said he was worried whether his wife might be causing any trouble at work. Her heart pounded violently. Trouble? What did I do? Of course, nothing at all. You're truly excellent, and everyone trusts you, Michael hastily added. It's just that we couldn't understand why he would suddenly make such a call. She couldn't understand the reason either. She rarely discussed work at home. Why would Dexter suddenly call her workplace with concerns? Actually, there's something else that's bothering me, Michael continued. This morning, we received an inquiry from someone in your neighborhood asking if there might be some problems in your household. From a neighbor? I couldn't get details, but it seems some rumors are spreading. On her way home, her mind was in turmoil. The call to her workplace, neighborhood rumors. What was happening? When she returned home at 6 p.m., she encountered Mrs. Johnson from next door at the front entrance. They usually exchanged pleasant greetings, but that day was different. "Hello," she called out, and Mrs. Johnson wore a peculiar expression. "Oh, hello, are you doing well?" "Yes, thank you." "I see, if anything happens, feel free to talk to me anytime." Mrs. Johnson gave her a meaningful look and hurried away. It was as if Mary was dealing with some serious problem. When she entered the house, she found an envelope from the bank in the mailbox. It was confirmation documents for account transfer procedures. However, she had no memory of making such arrangements. "Dexter, what's this?" she asked while preparing dinner. "Oh, that," Dexter answered without looking up from his newspaper. "Just reorganizing the account names. But I wasn't told anything about it." "It doesn't concern you." That cold response left her speechless. Doesn't concern her? Could there be marital assets that didn't concern her? But isn't that our joint account? Not anymore. Dexter folded his newspaper with a sharp rustle. "Mom and I discussed it and decided." Constance said nothing, she just wore a meaningful smile. That night, while lying in bed, she reflected on the day's events. Her colleagues' attitudes at work, neighbors' looks, and her husband's cold responses. It felt as if an invisible net was being woven around her. The meaning of those "something feels off" comments in the chat was becoming clearer. The viewers might have sensed changes she herself hadn't noticed. She stared at the ceiling and let out a deep sigh. What awaited her the next day? And were these anxieties and suspicions real? Her smartphone by the pillow had an alarm set to remind her to prepare for streaming. At 2 p.m. the following day, when she would stand before the camera again, what would she feel? The next afternoon, while preparing for her stream, she recalled the previous night. She had heard Dexter and Constance talking in the kitchen until late, their secretive conversation filling her with anxiety. That morning, she had taken decisive action. She hid a small voice recorder behind the coffee maker in the back of the kitchen cabinet. It was an old recording equipment from her part-time job. If her suspicions were wrong, nothing would be recorded. But if something was happening? At 1:30 p.m., she retrieved the recording device. When she pressed play, Dexter and Constance's voices came through clearly. "I've reached my limit with her," Constance's voice. "I'm exhausted too. I had vague feelings before we got married, but I never imagined it would be this bad," Dexter's reply. Her hands trembled. But the recording continued. "How long do you plan to hide her family's debt problems?" Debt problems? She was stunned. Her family had no debts. This was a complete lie. Are the divorce preparations going smoothly? It was smart to transfer everything into your name before she could take anything in the asset division. That craft streaming is just a bundle of validation seeking. I'm too embarrassed to tell my colleagues. She's really stupid, so she doesn't realize how much everyone dislikes her. At work and in the neighborhood, everyone's troubled by her. I just had to have a few conversations, and they understood immediately. All the mysteries became clear. The call to her workplace, neighborhood rumors, the bank account changes. Everything was systematic manipulation by Constance. At 2 p.m., she began her stream. But that day was different. "Hello everyone. Today, this will be a somewhat special stream, her voice carried tension that viewers immediately detected. "Actually, there's something I'd like you all to hear." Then she played the recorded audio. Dexter and Constance's raw conversation began flowing through the stream. The chat exploded instantly. "This is horrible. Completely planned psychological abuse. You did nothing wrong. The family debt is a lie, right? I'm recording this needs to be documented." The viewer count began to surge dramatically. 10 times, 20 times the usual number of people were watching the stream. What should I do?" she asked the viewers, on the verge of tears. Advice flooded the chat. First, consult a lawyer. Preserve all evidence. Start preparing for separation. You're not alone, we're here for you. Contact the bank and report the unauthorized account manipulation. One viewer sent specific advice: "I've been through a divorce. Open an account in your name at a different bank immediately. Change your payroll direct deposit and move all important documents to a safe place." Another viewer continued, "From now on, keep detailed records of all conversations in a diary. Date, time, location, and exactly who said what. Recording laws vary by state. Always consult a lawyer before deciding how to use recordings. I work in law, and you need to be careful about using recordings. I recommend consulting an expert." She wept at the viewers' warm support and level-headed advice. "Thank you. Thanks to all of you, I can finally see reality clearly." While continuing the stream, she began taking action. She searched for local law firms on her smartphone and made an appointment for tomorrow. She accessed the bank's website and started the account opening process. "Until now, I thought being a good wife, good daughter-in-law was right. But I was wrong." Encouraging messages continued flowing through the chat. "You've tried hard enough. Take care of yourself. This is the beginning of a new life. We'll always support you. If you have emails or texts, save those too. It's important to keep detailed records of household incidents." At 3 p.m., 1 hour into the stream, the viewership had exceeded 20,000. "Everyone, I've decided," her voice carried unwavering determination. "I'm ending this marriage. And I'm starting my real life." The expression on her face belonged to a woman free of doubt. For the first time in her 42 years, she was choosing her life by her own will. The chat was filled with congratulations and encouragement. "Congratulations. Thank you for your courage. Your bravery will save other women too. Supporting your new life. Handle legal procedures carefully with experts. But your decision is right." After ending the stream, she organized the recording device and evidence materials. She would begin preparing for the new life. Above all, she resolved to seek expert advice to act in legally correct ways. It was the moment one woman was reborn through viewer support. 12 hours after the stream ended, the next morning, her life had completely changed. Her smartphone contained hundreds of supportive messages, with many viewers offering concrete assistance. At 9 a.m., she visited a law firm downtown. It was a meeting with female attorney Elizabeth Hartwell, whom one of her viewers had recommended the night before. The experienced attorney, in her 50s, specialized in domestic issues. "First, let me be frank, publicly sharing that recording carries legal risks," Attorney Hartwell explained with a serious expression. "Recording without consent is illegal in many states, and the public release could create privacy invasion and defamation issues." Her face paled. "So I did something wrong." However, the lawyer continued, "The pattern of psychological abuse you're experiencing is clear. While the recording can't be used as evidence, let's gather evidence through legal methods going forward." "What methods?" "First, keep detailed diary records of future events. Date, time, location, and exactly who said what. Save any emails or text messages. And if possible, gather third-party testimony. At 11 a.m., she opened a personal account at a new bank. She also processed the payroll direct deposit change simultaneously. Following viewer advice, she took the first step toward financial independence. Regarding unauthorized account manipulation, this could be financial fraud, the bank employee explained. We'll report it to our investigation department and create official records. At 1 p.m., she headed to her part-time accounting office. She needed to explain the situation to office manager Michael. Actually, I do streaming on the internet. And yesterday's stream. She carefully explained the situation. Michael looked surprised. Now I understand the meaning of your husband's call. He was trying to isolate you. I'm sorry for causing trouble at the workplace. No, you're the victim. We fully support you. And if necessary, we'll testify about what happened here at the workplace. Her colleagues Jennifer and Robert also offered warm support once they understood the situation. Knowing her place at work was secure lightened her heart. At 2 p.m., during her usual streaming time, viewership exceeded 5,000 immediately upon starting. The previous day's stream had spread, and many people were watching her next moves. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for all the support you gave me yesterday. Messages like "keep going, we're rooting for you," and "what happened" flowed through the chat. I consulted with a lawyer this morning. Actually, yesterday's recording release apparently had legal problems, she honestly explained the lawyer's concerns. Viewers showed understanding, offering advice like "stay legal going forward" and "follow expert guidance." But the lawyer acknowledged the psychological abuse I'm experiencing. I'll gather evidence through proper methods now. I can't show you details, but I reviewed the past 6 months of bank transactions with my lawyer. She chose her words carefully. I can't say much, but we confirmed multiple unauthorized transactions, made without my consent. We discovered substantial amounts were moved without permission, and this will be submitted as formal evidence to investigative agencies. The chat filled with supportive comments. Following proper procedures. Working with experts is best. Victory through legal means. You're on the right path. Around 3 p.m., an unexpected event occurred during the stream. The doorbell rang. Excuse me, let me check that. Looking at the intercom, Mrs. Johnson from next door was standing there. But her expression was completely different from the previous day. Hello? Actually, I need to talk about yesterday. Mrs. Johnson began apologetically. Your mother-in-law told me you were mentally unstable and might be troubling the neighbors. But last night, I watched your stream online and learned the truth. We neighbors misunderstood you. I'm truly sorry. And if necessary, I can testify about what your mother-in-law told us. This was a significant development. The possibility of third-party testimony had emerged. Returning to the stream, the viewership had reached 8,000. A neighbor just came to apologize. And she said she'd testify if needed. Messages like "perfect development," "third-party testimony is powerful," and "justice will win" flowed through the chat. At 4 p.m., another development occurred. Michael from her part-time job called. Actually, your husband called again. This time he said, "My wife is spreading false information online and demanded we fire you." I see. Of course we refused. And we're keeping records of this call too. We'll testify about workplace harassment if necessary. Before ending the stream, she expressed gratitude to her viewers. Thanks to all of you, my life completely changed in 24 hours. I'm making steady progress through legally correct procedures. Her expression on screen glowed like a different person from yesterday. Tomorrow I'm viewing a new apartment. And with my lawyer, I'll build a new life through legal and reliable methods. The chat filled with congratulatory messages. At the end of the streams, the viewership was 12,000. People worldwide were supporting and watching one woman's life transformation. The counterattack was proceeding steadily through legally correct methods. And the path to true victory was becoming clearly visible. The next day at 2 p.m., she began streaming as usual. But that day was special. Having received legal counsel and prepared procedures, she had finally resolved to directly confront her husband and mother-in-law. The viewership surpassed 10,000 immediately upon starting. Many had been waiting for this confrontation moment. Hello everyone. I have a report for you today. Her voice was calm but carried strong determination beneath. After consulting with my lawyer, all preparations are complete. Today, I'm telling my husband and mother-in-law my decision. Messages like, "You can do it," "You'll be fine," and "We're watching over you" flowed through the chat. Actually, they know about my streaming. They apparently heard from neighbors last night. At 2:30 p.m., as expected, Dexter and Constance appeared in the living room. Both had learned about her streaming from neighbors. "What are you doing?" Dexter's voice trembled with anger. "Broadcasting family matters without permission." Without permission, she turned quietly. Who manipulated accounts without permission? She continued streaming while responding calmly. The camera showed the two agitated figures over her shoulder. "You two, 20,000 people are watching right now." Constance's face paled. "Please, stop that. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing? She turned around. "When you told the neighbors I was mentally unstable, did you feel embarrassed then?" "That was..." "When you made harassing calls to my workplace, did you feel embarrassed then?" Dexter interrupted. "We were worried about family matters." Worried, emotion crept into her voice for the first time. Moving our $25,000 savings without permission was being worried? Secretly preparing for divorce was being worried? The chat filled with supportive messages. "Tell them." "Perfect comeback." "Speak the truth." "You're right." She picked up her smartphone and pointed the screen toward them. "Right now, 25,000 people are watching. And many are recording. Please just stop," Constance pleaded desperately. "We were wrong. We apologize." "Apologize?" She shook her head. "For 15 years, I endured whatever you said to me. I tried to be a good wife, good daughter-in-law." Her voice was quiet, but it carried deep sadness and liberation. "But enough. I'm freeing myself from your control." Dexter made a last attempt at resistance. "Without Mom and me, you can't do anything." "Can't do anything," she smiled. "Yesterday, I signed a lease for a new apartment. I'm starting a new life next week." The chat flooded with congratulatory messages. "Congratulations. Beginning of a new life. You're free now. Thank you for your courage. I've consulted with my lawyer to proceed with divorce. I'm also demanding the return of the illegally transferred funds for asset division." Constance began crying. "Please, we're family." "Family," she answered quietly. "Family respects and supports each other. A relationship that deceives me, isolates me, and tries to control me economically isn't family." "But these past 15 years," Dexter started to say. "These past 15 years, I was just playing your ideal good wife, good daughter-in-law. But the real me is here." She turned back to the streaming camera. "Thanks to all of you, I found my true self." At 3 p.m., about 30 minutes of confrontation ended. Dexter and Constance left the room speechless. Mary faced the camera again. "Thank you for watching, everyone." Her expression was refreshed, as if she'd set down heavy baggage. "It was a 15-year marriage, but I truly lived as myself only these past few days. The viewership had reached 30,000. Tomorrow I start packing. And next week, I'll start a new life as the real me. Moving messages continued flowing through the chat. I'm crying. Moved by your courage. You really did well. Supporting your new life. You gave me courage too. At the end of the live stream, she sincerely thanked to the viewers. Without all of you, I might still be living a lie. Thank you so much. At 3:30 p.m., she ended the stream. The final viewership was 35,000. It would remain in many people's memories as a historic stream that changed one woman's life. That night, she made dinner alone. For the first time in 15 years, a meal just for herself. As she arranged the single serving on the small table, she smiled quietly. Outside the window, the sunset was fading. The following day would bring a new morning. A new life at 42 was about to begin. The streaming equipment remained in the living room. The following day's stream would be from her new home. This time from a completely free position, to bring hope to women in similar situations. Her battle was over. And her true life had begun. 3 months later at 2 p.m., she was preparing for her stream in the living room of her new apartment. Sunlight streaming through the window reflected gently off the white walls. The space was incomparably smaller than her previous home, but this was completely her own place. Hello everyone. Thank you for your time today. Her expression on screen was like a different person from 3 months ago. Her eyes held vibrant light, and her voice carried confidence and peace. Her follower count exceeded 150,000. Following that stream, women from around the world in similar situations had found her channel. Today, I have something I'd like to show you. She picked up a newly purchased embroidery hoop. Colorful threads formed a beautiful floral pattern. This is a piece I completed last week. I titled it, New Spring. 3 months ago, she never would have chosen such bold, bright colors. Back then, she was constantly worried about others' opinions, always selecting safe, subdued colors. But it's different now. She could choose colors she truly found beautiful without hesitation. Warm comments flowed through the chat. What a wonderful piece. Your color choices are more free than before. I'm happy to see your transformation. You're giving me courage. However, she decided to be honest with her viewers. Actually everyone, my lawyer sternly pointed out something about that stream. Her expression clouded slightly. Publishing that recording and discussing family matters on stream was legally risky behavior. There were possibilities of privacy invasion and defamation, and it could have been disadvantageous in divorce mediation. Concerned comments appeared in the chat. Are you okay? Did it become a legal problem? But you were the victim. In fact, Dexter's lawyer tried to use my stream as retaliatory and destructive behavior in divorce mediation, she sighed. Fortunately, Attorney Hartwell was excellent, and there were many problems on Dexter's side too, so we could avoid major disadvantages. But my actions at that time were not legally correct. This was reality. The consequences of acting emotionally were significant, and divorce mediation became a complex, time-consuming process. Attorney Hartwell strictly told me to absolutely refrain from such actions in the future. She continued addressing her viewers. If anyone is in a similar situation, please don't act emotionally like I did. Consult experts first. Protect yourself through legally correct methods. Around 3 p.m., a special guest joined the stream. Attorney Hartwell called via video. Hello everyone. I'm Hartwell, serving as Mary's attorney. Today, there's something I can officially announce. The divorce mediation has reached agreement. Attorney Hartwell chose her words carefully. There were legal risks from the streaming incident, but the evidence of financial manipulation and psychological abuse from the other party was considered more important, and we ultimately reached agreement on favorable terms for her. She showed relief. However, the lawyer continued, the agreement states that future public statements like this should be avoided. This clause applies to both parties. Reality was complex. It's not a complete victory, but a resolution involving many constraints and compromises. Understanding comments flowed through the chat. That must have been difficult. Still good that you could move forward. Reality is complex. I understand the importance of legal procedures. At 4 p.m., the nearly 2-hour stream was nearing its end. Thank you for spending this long time with me today. She looked toward flowers arranged by the window. The small potted plants were growing a little each day. My experience isn't a perfect success story. I made many mistakes and assumed legal risks, she spoke honestly. But with expert help, I was ultimately able to start a new life. Not perfect, but definitely moving forward. At the end of the stream, the viewership had reached 20,000. If anyone is in a similar situation, please consult trusted experts before acting emotionally. You don't need to take the roundabout route I did. Well then, let's meet again tomorrow at this time. Everyone, have a wonderful day. When she turned off the streaming equipment, silence returned to the room. While preparing dinner, she reflected on the past 3 months. Taking legal risks, going through complex mediation, finally obtaining freedom. It wasn't a perfect victory, but she was definitely moving forward. Outside the window, the sunset was beginning. Tomorrow would bring another new day. The realistic but hopeful life of a 42-year-old woman would continue. Not as a perfect revenge story, but as a realistic problem-solving narrative, Mary's experience continued providing genuine lessons to many people.